Yo, this is episode 105 of the Beef and Bitcoin podcast with your hosts, Brett and Happy Shillmore. We haven't recorded in a couple months, dude. Things have been absolutely insane the last couple of months.
It's been since January.
Yeah, January 3rd was like the last one we published, and Bitcoin was at 33,000 that day.
And now we're at 52,665.
Yeah. Incredible. It's been quite the move. I guess it's at the time we were recording in January, I don't think at the time we saw that coming. And even today, like, I didn't expect to be where we are today. It seems like things happened kind of just a lot sooner than expected. Not that any of this was expected at all. And I remember just being in the depths of the bear market, and it was like, whoa, around Christmas time started moving, and it was like, wait, what?
Yeah, I mean, like, we started recording in end of November, December 2018, and prices appreciated 1,400% there. But I mean, really the last movement of it, all of it's been since October 2020. I think that's when it really took off. I remember I texted you and we were talking about it. I think you were on vacation. I went out of town for a little bit, and it just started going. And, to 20K. Yeah. There was a little pause and accumulation around 20K, and then boom, it's been nothing but up only. I mean, with a few, obviously, no doubt volatility, but overall trend has been up.
Yeah, it took about looking at those weeklies, it took like 4 weeks or so hanging around 20K before it actually took off, which, I don't know. I was expecting it to kind of go down when it got that close, to be quite honest with you, and not make a hard break.
It did go down a decent amount, but obviously not a whole lot, I guess, would be expected. I mean, went down to 16K, and that was kind of bye-bye. It got ate up. I mean, there was obviously buyers were there, so it was up only at that point. But I mean, again, it's kind of funny when you look at it. When you look over time, it's easier to, when it's happening, it's much slower. I don't know if that's a better way to put it. Because you're living throughout the hours, the minutes, versus when you zoom out and like, oh, that was just like, a few candlesticks, and it's like, oh, that was 3 weeks of, high volatile prices, trying to break 20K. So it's definitely, it's kind of like, as you and I talked about before, now it's like if you don't own Bitcoin, you kind of look dumb per se, because the price is almost over 20x in the past year. So it's definitely been a whole 180, and it's always kind of funny as we talk about price drives adoption. It changes everyone's opinion.
Big time. Yeah, I mean, I remember my coworker talking to me about it. I've been talking to him about it for like the last couple of years, maybe since probably since when we started recording. And he's a typical retail investor. He's got a bunch of properties, holds some stonks, stuff like that. He's actually a really decent investor. And he has a little Bitcoin position, and it's funny because he thought, maybe we'll be at 50,000 like sometime in 2022. Like it's interesting. The normie mind, who's like just starting to look at Bitcoin, just doesn't think it can go to prices that the person who's been in since maybe 2017 or been watching it knows, like, oh, when this thing starts to run, like, it can really move and go to prices you didn't think were possible. But even a lot's happened since the last time we recorded. I remember I'm looking at one of the titles of one of our prior episodes, and it was "Will Tesla buy Bitcoin?" And that ended up happening.
They were buying Bitcoin probably before, I think, weren't they? If I remember correctly, we recorded that what?
We recorded that in December.
Okay, so sometime around that.
Yeah, I want to say they got in. I can't even remember anymore.
It was sometime around or before Christmas.
Yeah.
Someone did the research behind it, in their buy-ins.
Oh, right. But and then you have new news today. You have Elon announced Tesla will be accepting Bitcoin for car purchases, but as bullish as that may sound, I really don't see anybody doing it. You have tax consequences to deal with if you're selling. You have other things to worry about. Plus, like, at this point, you might as well hang on to it. So I don't know, maybe 0.1% of cars will be purchased with Bitcoin, and that's probably even like a stretch. But in my opinion, the real news is that, he said, quote on Twitter, Bitcoin paid to Tesla will be retained as Bitcoin, not converted to fiat currency. So I think it's like an additional DCA strategy they can do, right? If you're willing to sell your goods and services for Bitcoin, more power to you. It's a great way to accumulate. I have absolutely no clue if they're going to buy more. I mean, they bought like $1.5 billion worth or something. So at that point of your Tesla, who knows? You might as well just keep it, right? At worst case scenario, if the company shits a brick, you can borrow against it or something and keep financing your operations. Worst case scenario. Not saying that they'll have to do that, but at least it's a start. It seems that their balance sheet now is stronger. Like in the worst of cases of scenarios, that's like surprisingly their hardest asset that they have. So
did they say how many Bitcoin they own? Like how many, total? Like is it like 5,000 or something?
There's an estimate, but I mean they bought $1.5 billion worth. I think they're up like $1 billion on it, and their total. And I want to say it was like between 7 and 8% of their total cash on their balance sheet.
Companies don't need to make money anymore, people. They just need to buy assets and make money. They buy crypto and make money. That's where the stage of this market we're in. Tesla doesn't need to make money anymore. They just sell EV credits and make $1 billion on their Bitcoin purchase. This is, oh my god.
Yeah, that's kind of where we're
at in the cycle. Yeah, exactly, dude.
Yeah. And it's like
this is history. Yeah, I mean, and I don't care anyone. This is whatever you look at it. It's gonna be an interesting. I don't know how it ends for Tesla, but it's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting.
Their market cap's still probably ridiculous too.
Yeah.
604 billion. No big deal. Dude, it's like, oh man, I don't think people realize how blown out valuations will be out in proportion. And again, it's free money, dude. And you and I talk about inflation. Like it's here. I hear so many people talking about it now. I texted you today about it, like people talking about lunch, golf memberships going up. Hiking, and like you see it all the time. I see it everywhere. And like the thing is you realize like normies are starting to see it. It's like fuck.
Yeah, I think your average person is also starting to see the inflation come in, and especially like your general contractors and other people like that are getting a nice hard look at the cost of lumber, the cost of steel, shortages in certain products that they need, building materials. You see it in real estate, and more so just because like a lack of supply in the real estate market, right? I know houses are being sold. Basically, people are not doing inspections. They're waiving inspections. They're waiving all kinds of things, which is, I don't know. That's a sign of the times, I guess. But you have on top of that the rent moratoriums and eviction moratoriums that will eventually start to work themselves out, and people aren't going to want to get foreclosed on. So you have limited supply of housing. You have people who like are really trying to move too. People are trying to go to Arizona or Texas or Florida. They're trying to make moves, and there's not a lot for sale. So you're seeing some really wacky things. One of my good buddies is moving to Pittsburgh, and he's putting offers on houses like every weekend, sight unseen, just over asking. You like have to do what you got to do to get a house, and the frothiness definitely seems like you can see the inflation coming in other things. My thing is, even when like you look at the lumber charts and stuff like that, is there going to be I hate to use the term like a new normal, but when I look at this chart and it looks like the last decade, on average, it was, call it in the $400 range,
even less than
approximately.
That, dude.
Yeah. So that's kind of my thing. When I look at this lumber chart, obviously it's insane with the cost of lumber kind of skyrocketing, but with inflation setting in, I wasn't around for the inflation in the 70s. But does this chart end up being like, if you take that graph and kind of shift it upward, like the new normal ends up being lumber prices and double what they are from that $400 range, or like is it going to be on average much higher than it was? It's like I just can't tell it. That looks like very cyclical to me, which is interesting.
I was going to say, look at this. Like, so this chart goes back to the early 70s, when the U.S. dollar delinked from gold. So from October 1974 to August of 1979, the price of lumber basically went up roughly just shy of 200%. And in the last, what do you want to call it, from basically the bottom in March of 2020, end of March 2020, to August of 2020, so all of 4 months, maybe 5, if you want to say, almost 300%, 275%. The price of lumber just went vertical. I mean, is there any other way to describe that? Vertical?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, it spiked for sure.
I mean, this is what happens when the money itself has just been played with. There's no rules. We just print. I mean, prices, you don't find it. There's no price discovery. It's just, funny money. It's fun coupons. That's what we have. We're literally giving out free money. It's bad.
Yeah. And, you look at this and say, okay, well, it's certainly going to continue its whipsawing and find some sort of balance with supply and demand. The problem I see is if all of a sudden that supply and demand equilibrium winds up being $500 or $600 or something, that's a full 100% increase now on average for the cost of lumber. So there goes your housing cost, the cost to redo your kitchen goes up. All of these things start to add up, and that's where it's not like you and I have talked about this before. The cost of like movie tickets ever went back down to like $7 or 25 cents. It like went up to $12, $20 in some areas, and it never really came back down. Although the difference now is you can watch YouTube for free, right? That's difference. That's a technological advancement. But the bigger fear is if those commodity prices all of a sudden make like a permanent shift upwards of, I don't know, X%, that's when it's like, all right, houses now cost this because of the cost of lumber going up, or cars cost more because of the cost of steel and things like that.
Yeah, I was going to say, the other day I messaged you or texted you about it, like literally in a vending machine, I saw gum went from, it used to be probably 75 cents for a pack of 5 gum not too long ago, and probably 50 cents in the last, decade, if not, 7, 8 years. The pack of a 5 stick of gum was $1. That's 20 cents a stick of gum. I don't care what anyone says. That is inflation. That is absurd. That's a crime against humanity.
Well, I mean, these are the things that people don't really think about, and it's it's easy to dismiss this stuff. I remember my first job, I literally made like $7 an hour, and I know people still make that today, and it's hard, dude.
Yeah.
Life is not easy. I totally get it, but it's more that those permanent increases in the things that people actually need to survive: food, water, shelter, rent, car, gas, electricity. I mean, those are the things that are conveniently left out of the CPI basket because they're too volatile in the wrong direction. They're too volatile. But these are the things for like the average person. It's tough. Even for an average middle class person or person with a professional job, depending upon what state you live in, even houses now seem like they're becoming further and further out of reach, and
it's
the natural
consequence.
Prices.
Like, and I feel so bad for people in our generation, millennial and Gen Z, where you're like, okay, how can the average person who makes 50, 60, even people like 100K a year, when you're looking at some of these home prices in suburban areas, I know depends on where you are in the country and everything, that prices change, but just normal homes, 350K, 400K, 500K, I mean, that's 5 years of work, and it's, obviously you put down payment, but you get what I mean. Like, it's different.
Totally.
And again, it just, Now, if there's a very small subset of the population that makes a shit ton of money, and I have nothing against making money, but what happens when you have inflation, what happens when you have these easy money policies, is the people who own assets, own businesses, make the most fucking money. And if your wages stay the same or don't keep up with inflation, you pretty much get dicked. And that's the easiest term to put it. You get dicked. Like the Fed, other central banks, prop up assets. They, when anything goes down, they're there. Like, I mean, we can't talk about like last year, like the whole economy shut down and we rebounded and nothing was open for weeks, but things just kept going up. And I have nothing against it. I'm just saying, like, this is all a result of easy money policies in a decade plus of, it's been longer than that, but really since the financial crisis. I mean, it's an interesting culmination. And again, we started recording this podcast and the U.S. wasn't a state, I guess we did have government assistance and money, but we went full-blown socialism under Donald Trump and no one talks about it. And it's like, I mean, that's pretty fucking historical. We just started giving out free money. I know we're not the only country, but like, there's consequences for just giving out loans and free money everywhere. Like there are, no matter what way, this isn't about feelings or moral part of it. There are real world consequences for printing all this money.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I think most people, it's easy to not think about the other side of the coin. Like, oh, well, we need to help people. And of course, like, that's definitely top of mind. The majority of the time, you don't realize that handing out the money can end up making things worse a couple years later when rents have doubled.
It doesn't even take a couple years at this point. I mean, I talked to my dad about this because he's a sales consultant. And, like, perfect example, I think, granted, lease prices are a little different, but, like, where he does, where he sells cars, it's the Detroit market. And not that people don't buy cars, but majority of market in Detroit is leasing. It's just prices are much more geared better that way. Anyways, prices of leases, like, you don't get $200 leases anymore. $250 leases don't exist anymore. And that was all 2-3 years ago. People come in from 2018, 2019 customers, and you can't get a $250 truck payment. It's maybe $350 at best if you have, employee discount and other things for people. But, like, otherwise, it's insane. And you see, even like you and I talked before, like, try buying a new car in the U.S. for less than $25,000. Can't. And
yeah,
you just can't. And again, I know there's stats about it from back when money was gold, but like someone could work for a month and a half and they could buy a new car or something. I'm not saying like obviously there's a used car market, but you and I know we've messaged about it. And it's kind of big news now. Is there's a major microchip shortage, so none of these auto manufacturers can make fucking cars. Like Ford's been pushing off cars. They've been making all these cars and just setting them aside because they have microchips. And like, for instance, like FCA, which is now Stellantis, which is Fiat Chrysler originally, is literally just making like Rams, Wranglers, and Grand Cherokees, and like, occasionally like fucking Scat Packs and Hellcats for people. But like, that's it. They're only making things that, it's like they're at that point. And, I talked to my dad about this, and like, a year ago, their dealership was 900 cars, and now they're under 300 cars. So inventory levels are way down. And you see the same thing with used car lots. I know other people that own car dealerships, and it's the same thing. And it's going to be interesting. Like he's like, I might as well just take a month off this summer because there's going to be nothing to sell.
Yeah.
Just like, and I can only imagine like smaller, out of town dealerships, stuff like that usually normally stock, maybe 150, 200 cars are, in the double digit cars, and that might be under 50 for all. I mean, it's pretty interesting to see happen. We don't even think about it. And this whole Suez Canal thing, it's kind of a little black swanny here, a little bit of an omen almost, because it's like, it doesn't seem like much. And I know I mentioned before, like, we live in such a digital world where we get information all the time. We don't think about, things like trains, large ships that transport all our goods. Obviously, aircraft are involved, but aircraft's more expensive, way more expensive than shipping, on a train or intermodal, So, but this is massive. Like, they can't move this giant ass container ship. It's like 1,000 feet long out of the canal. Nothing can get through, from the Mediterranean to the Red Sea. I mean, and that is massive. You're going to have all these ships piling up. They're going to have to redirect, and the delays are going to, you don't even think about it. It's going to disrupt the supply chain. It's going to be a fucking earthquake in the supply chain, like this. And it's going to be noticed, guess what, in a week or two. It's not going to take long. And guess who's going to know beforehand? The market.
Right.
I mean, it might take maybe another, it might take another 3 weeks, but the market's going to know ahead of time. It's like, fuck, this is not good. Like this is, look at how fucking big this ship is, dude. Look at that little fucking, that's not a small dozer. Look at the
Yeah.
anchor. The anchor. Dude,
Yeah,
it's.
it's incredible how big those ships are.
I
So I
mean,
think it's a good point of like more of like a on a Bitcoin term, it's a single point of failure, right? Like
exactly.
I'm not sure if this has
Well,
happened before. The way
no,
that
I
they're
don't think
talking
this is
about it makes it seem
in.
like this is a rare occurrence.
So
Um,
I was looking this up, and I'm gonna cut you off, but like, because some points of the channel have two canals and stuff like that, but this was like one part where it got stuck, and there's only the single part in that canal.
yeah.
Like I want to say it got stuck in the northern part, right up here. You see how that's
Hmm.
just one long channel, and so you
Yeah.
got two up here, you got two channels up here, but for that stretch of however many miles it is, maybe 20, 30, 40 miles, uh, it's one long channel. And then down here you can see there's two channels that feed to the lake, and then there's another single channel that feeds from the lake to the what was it, Red Sea. So there's two choke points in there. And it got stuck in the northern choke point, which is pretty incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it sucks. It's like, but these are the kinds of things where single points of failure totally make a difference. This is probably like a 1 in 100 year event or something. It probably happens.
Yeah,
Seriously, it
no,
probably happens like
dude.
once every 100 years.
They
Like
didn't have ships like this before, so I mean, this might be a first time thing ever. I mean, because the
right,
Suez
right,
Canal's been around for 100 and maybe a little over 100 years. I have to look, but it's not been around that long.
yeah. And this is where redundancies and you have to think really carefully about this stuff. Even with the mask shortage, it turns out it's like, oh well, masks are only made in one place on the planet, and if people think that they need them all around the globe and they're only made in one place, like, well, what do you do? So maybe that's not a good example, but it just goes to show you the dependency on single points of failure for, if you have one country that makes the majority of people's stuff, it can be a challenge if you need that stuff
China.
and like if you need that stuff and you can't, like, I think TSMC is actually, they're opening up like two plants in Arizona, like a billion, they're going to drop $1 billion or $2 billion on building like chip fabs there, which that's awesome because you need more foundries around the globe that can make silicon processors. Like we gotta get there, and not a lot of stuff is made in America. It's funny actually, not to go back on Tesla, but it, Elon had said, he's like, yeah, I know it sounds weird, but there hasn't been a new like car manufacturer in the States that's actually making them there in like 100 years or something. And I was like, well, I guess that's actually pretty impressive, like
Yeah,
to make something here. And cars are expensive to make. Like
the
you need to
people
come up
don't
with
even think about like, the labor that goes into it and stuff like that, and the
oh
parts and
yeah,
the
yeah,
supply chain too. Like like a lot of these auto manufacturers, especially even Americans, a lot of the parts that are sourced are made out of the country because just
right.
if you inputted that labor cost into those parts, it would just be too expensive.
Yeah, it's incredible. You think about what's the video, like iPencil or something, like how much logistics go into like making the graphite and the wood and the paint, and it's being shipped from all over the world. Like it's one of the greatest arguments against centralized control, kind of more socialistic type of government rule over the production of stuff. Like there's too many inputs and variables for one centralized kind of person or group to make everything. It's impossible. Goods are made in other parts of the world and shipped in, and like you can't do everything. Um, and even just Suez Canal thing, this is like black swanish, right? It's like, oh, you're right. We're not going to find out for a couple weeks. Like, oh, where's the shortage of what? What was on the ship? Where was it going? Who needed
Yeah,
it?
and
Yeah.
it's not even that, dude. All the ships that are stuck now,
Right, right. That's
hundreds
yeah, that's a bigger point. Yeah.
and hundreds of other container ships cannot go through now. Whether east to west or west to east, whatever, they're all pooling up in this area. And also, the Suez Canal was started in 1859 and completed in 1869. So It's been around for actually well over 150 years, which is pretty incredible when you think about it.
Yeah, that is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be. I don't know what the cause list again. Like, is this like because like I feel like last year coronavirus really wasn't a black swan. You and I talked about it. Like there was a lot of people talking about it. Like especially even we say like a lot of Bitcoin people were on top of that way ahead of time. You know,
Right.
it was a big deal. Like, but again, like mainstream media blew it off. Like it was mentioned in late January, then blown off, and then a month later, a little over a month later, maybe 5 weeks later, you know, it ends up changing everything we do in life. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah,
I mean,
it is
like
amazing.
literally, the whole world fucking ceased to exist for a few weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Yeah, that sucked. It was
dude.
not
I'm
fun.
telling you, I'm so ready.
I mean, I
Just to
guess it
like,
still sucks,
I
but
just like want to be able to go out to a restaurant and sit down at a bar. Is that too much to ask
yeah.
for? Do I have to fucking like come in? Wait, oh wait, we can't let you stand at the bar. Like what the fuck?
Yeah,
We've
it's
lost our
frustrating.
minds. We've lost our
I
minds.
I ate outside at a restaurant the other day. It was it was awesome actually.
No,
It was nice
it's so
to
nice to go
finally do
out,
it.
dude. It's so nice to go out and eat lunch. Like because where I'm at in like Michigan, like we were shut down for like 3 because for whatever reason shutting down like after there's been a pandemic going for 6 months, like for three
Yeah.
months or whatever, like not letting people go sit inside. It's fucking depressing, like for society. Like you can't
Yeah.
do that to people. like,
Yeah.
especially during the winter. Like what the fuck? And like you know talking about like Thanksgiving, Christmas, New
Yeah.
Year's. Like what are you supposed to do? Sit in your thumb? Like can't even
Yeah.
go out and enjoy dinner. Like you
Yeah,
realize
it's
how
hard.
good you realize like how as humans like how it is so good for us to get out and interact with everything. Or you just if you live on you know whether you live on the mountains and shit, just get out like you know being
Yeah.
trapped inside is not good.
No, definitely. Yeah, let's jump to that last topic with Fidelity ETF filing. I think this got a lot of attention today. You know, Fidelity's actually been in the Bitcoin space since like 2014. They've been mining for a long time as part of their innovation efforts, which is good to see. And I mean, it seems like we've had a half dozen ETF filings in the U.S. within the last couple of weeks. NYDIG has one, Fidelity, this one that just happened. I mean, this happened today. Um, if anybody has a shot, I mean, Fidelity seems like a great potential to have that. And it seems, I mean, I don't think we talked about this too much in 2018, 2019, like when ETF, it had gotten to the point for me where I was like, it might never happen just because I think that people started filing in what, maybe like 2013, 2014. I think the Winklevoss did one in
Yeah,
2016. It was just always a no-go, right? So the ETF pump news was just, I had kind of written it off as it would just never kind of materialize. But I also didn't see the institutional adoption come in 2020 and now here in 2021. So I don't know. The path is being paved by a couple of people who are, you know, willing to kind of roll the dice here and put Bitcoin on their balance sheet and stuff like that. So uh, it would be nice to see it happen because, you know, as you and I've talked about, there's a lot of boomers, Gen Xers, hell, even myself. Like I wouldn't mind holding an ETF. Like it's really easy. You get a 1099. That's not complicated. Um, that's going to be really attractive to people. Of course, you know, you have the not your keys, not your coins, and there's that's its own set of issues and problems that people need to kind of take responsibility for. But I hope that it happens maybe this year or next year or something. I don't know what needs to happen. My bigger fear is that it happens like at the peak of
mm-hmm.
whatever whenever like the bubble's about to pop and it's like ETF gets announced and then
Yeah,
the bear market starts, right? And
yeah. I'm
let me tell
not
you,
like
bear markets are brutal.
yeah. I'm very and I was thinking about this before we recorded. I'm very bullish on Bitcoin in long term. I think right now, you know, we're seeing kind of the end of the dollar hegemony. And you know, and I hate to say it as an American, like you're seeing the end of the dollar hegemony. It's going to have a very real effect in America that people don't understand. But other countries, Russia, China specifically, especially, and probably soon to be the EU countries too, are going to want to break away from the dollar. They're
Yeah.
going to want out, and so that's going to be the thing, you know, to watch here is like, you know, what next, and Bitcoin might only play a minute, maybe an intermediary role in just simply international transactions. Because
Right.
honestly, like there's nothing that beats that right now because you can do it 24/7, 365 without interference. So it might not happen for another 5 years, maybe 10 years, but I'm
Sure.
bullish on
Yeah.
that point. I think you know it's hard for me like when people ask that I see people ask me about crypto and getting in. It's like okay, you got to have perspective here, people. Like this
Yeah.
asset has went up 15, 20 times in the last year. And then when you talk about the general nature of altcoins, I mean some of those things are up 50x. And as we learned in
Right.
2017, there are times to be wary of where you're at in a cycle. And we always talk about be greedy when others are fearful, be fearful when others are greedy. But just have a
Right.
general idea. And if you're new in the space, I would say not that don't put skin in the game because having skin in the game will make you research more, but don't go
Right.
crazy. Understand where you're at and don't blow your load all in one shot. It's pretty.
Yeah.
I mean, like it's pretty simple. So like I know you,
Yeah.
you
I
you like
think.
to use discounted average, and that's a great way if you want to own something. But it's because it's fucking impossible to pick tops and bottoms. So
Yeah, exactly. And you kind of have to learn that the hard way to be like, all right, if this is something that I like actually want to hang on to for a couple decades, maybe you want to pass it on to your kids, things like that. It's like a kind of like a long-term accumulation thing. Or I mean, this is what people do as they accumulate more capital, they start buying real estate, right? It's not that different, right? It just, you need to be prepared. And I've said this before. I was like, in 3 years from now, if the price of Bitcoin is at 52,000 whatever that it is today, like don't be too upset about it. You
yeah,
just like it happens in these very weird 4 year cycles historically. Maybe that won't happen for the next 4 years. Nobody has a clue, but you need to mentally kind of be prepared for that. And if it's something that you want to save in or hold long term, that's like you kind of, I wish somebody would have given me that advice like in 2017. Be like, yeah, maybe just get yourself some, hang on to it, learn about it, and then decide if you want to get more. So now it's, of course it's hard to kind of not get excited during like bull runs, right? I mean, this is us like 4 fucking years ago. um, Everybody's getting excited with the price, so it's like you just need to be mentally grounded, I think, and make sure you're thinking about it in the right way that's best for you.
yeah, no, it's different for everyone, and like I personally have a very, very bearish outlook on everything right now, and it's not because I'm not bullish on Bitcoin long term
Right.
or just the space long term. I think the space, like you and I getting experience in the space, gives us leaps and bounds over most people. Now, obviously, you and I would agree that the UI, UX, user interface, user experience for crypto and Bitcoin is just still fucking horrendous for the most part. I mean, it's
Yeah.
it's it's tough for people like you and I use it regularly, and it's like even for smart people I know, they're like, "Fuck, dude, this is computer savvy people." So that's going to be one of the biggest hurdles for this to be adopted. It's just ease of use. You know,
Yeah.
for the average normie, storing your private keys, having to write them down physically, and stuff like that, hardware wallets, fucking impossible. I just hate to say it.
Yeah. Yeah,
It
it's a
it's
mess. Yeah.
and so obviously there's custodian options. There's hiring other people who can do it, but so it's just there's got to be a simplified way, basically.
Yeah.
That's and someone will come out with it. Someone's going to be the person selling the picks and shuffles for this. I mean, they already are, but you get what I mean. Like
Totally.
it's someone will make something that makes Bitcoin so much more adoptable or usable. And as I said, like I think this will be one of the game changers for international, commerce and business when you're doing big deals. Oh, I want to buy 1,000 of X or 1,000 of Y, and we're going to send you 2 Bitcoin for it.
Right.
Something like that. Um,
Yeah, it has its efficiencies in terms of settlement within an hour, final settlement within an hour. I mean,
yeah,
it certainly beats the legacy system, even though people think it's slow and this and that. And it's like, well, when you compare it to the alternatives, like you send one wire transfer and it's like, all right, I'd rather just use Bitcoin. It's so much easier. Don't get me wrong, there's different accounting and tax implications for using it that make it not so fun to use or easy to use. Actually, it can be a real pain, but it's more just the point, like as a technology of final settlement of value, it's fucking awesome, and it surprisingly works. That's the weirdest thing. Like, I probably haven't done a Bitcoin transaction in a long time, but like when you send it and it works, it's like magical. You're like, I can't believe it actually worked, which is, you know,
No,
considering it, yeah, it is crazy that it does actually work.
it's a unique experience. I think everyone should do it. It's pretty funny since we started recording. I think the Nasdaq went from positive 3 basis points to negative down 35 basis points or whatever, roughly. So, well, a little baby swing here while we're recording. I don't know what's going to happen. And as I said, I think that Suez Canal thing is more and more becoming that black swan. That'll be interesting. If that's what triggers this whole thing, or if that's what's this pin top, that's going to be pretty interesting. Because again, it's one of those things that's so right on the spot, where it just happens like that, like in the flash, and all of a sudden it changes everything. The ripples this is going to send through. Just imagine freight brokerages. People are supposed to be receiving supplies now, even if it was like let's say somewhere in France or Italy was supposed to receive supplies, and that was probably only a day trip away from wherever it was in the Suez, if not less, is now not getting there, and that's going to be starting to be immediately felt, and it's going to just ripple and continue to ripple. So,
right.
Speaking of Ripple, let's see what XRP USD is up to. The ultimate shit going. Oh man, Peter the Brand. I had that feeling it was gonna pump too the other day. It got the feelies going. I was like, I thought there was a scam pump, and then the Brand confirming my thoughts was making me feel pretty tingly inside. I was like, wow, are we really gonna get a Ripple scam pump? I mean, dude, like when you look at 2017, I mean, it was literally 2-week candles, really 5 weeks of trading roughly that did the majority of that move. I mean, there was before that more, but we had like consolidation. I was like, if that happens, it's always funny. Like the things that are hated the most pump the hardest. But I think I think what's funny is Ethereum's one of those ones where everyone's been kind of pissy about it because it hasn't sure it went to all-time highs, but it really only did over the former ATH, 30 to 40%, which Bitcoin's obviously outperformed that, and other altcoins have way outperformed that against USD. So I think that's something. And again, Ethereum has infinite supply. So why the fuck should it go up?
Yeah.
I mean, and I think people are about to find that out really quickly here. Is that, if it can print infinite supply, well, guess what? There's going to be more supply than there's demand.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I like taking a look at the Ethereum chart just as like my barometer of where it's like my barometer for everything that's not Bitcoin.
Yeah, I know it's a pretty good, and not everything follows it perfectly, but they're within a day or two, if not much more. You know what I mean? Like the Ethereum Bitcoin chart's pretty sad right now. It tried to pump and it's going back down, and this might get even more sad soon.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, I'll go to I need the Bitfinex chart. That'll be a better one.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we could have a ways to go here against Bitcoin.
Right. That's like always my good frame of reference of where everything else is. And I think once kind of Bitcoin passed that $1 trillion market cap, I forget, it's like around 54,000, something like that. That's a big milestone. You and I talked about that for years, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, that was what we were so close.
Whatever,
in 2017, we weren't far as a general. The crypto market cap got just north of 800 billion in 2017, and a little less than half that. I think the top was Bitcoin, or half of it depending on the 20K mark. So I mean, Bitcoin was 400 billion. I mean, that was big,
right?
And that was before we had all these $2 trillion companies.
It's a good point. And it was like 2017. It's so funny that seems so long ago. Like,
dude, because it is.
Not even matter. Yeah.
Dude, because it is. It's 4 years. Dude, it fucks with me. It's like wow, I've been following this for 4 years of my life.
It's a long time.
It is, dude. You're like, wow. It's definite change.
Big time. What do you think, dude? That's probably a good way to wrap this one up.
Yeah.
This is good to catch up. A lot to talk about. It seems like we're getting more news each and every week. So hopefully we'll be able to.
I think there'll be some more interesting news coming up. So
definitely.
Good way to end episode 105. Thank you for listening.
Yep. Be sure to like and subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Yeah, leave us a comment. Shoot us a DM. Let us know if there's anything else you want us to touch on, and we're more than happy to do it. All right. Peace.
Peace.